He led champions on the field while losing a war with himself off of it. But behind the success was a man hiding from himself.
I could drink at a sitting, I could drink a half a bottle of Jack and go on and do and you wouldn't tell if it was just a normal day for me.
Wow.
So I did that throughout my radio career. I did that through my coaching career. And you think about how good of a coach could you have been?
He didn't hit rock bottom. He made a choice. He made a choice to stop hiding and to start living.
But it just got to be to the point where I said, can I do this? Can I survive without having this? And once I figured out I couldn't, I said I had to quit.
At 70 years old, Bucky Godbolt isn't finished. He's still showing up, still telling the truth, and he's not sugarcoating any of it.
One of my deals is to survive as long as I can, be around for my grandkids, make sure that I'm try to be as good a husband as I can be. You know, not the best.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I never tried to push to be the best.
Right.
I want to be as good as I can be. And that means a lot. That means a lot. If you can be the best you can be,
yeah,
that means that takes a lot of work, that takes a lot of discipline to do that.
This is Bucky Godbolt. You would think in retirement-ish you could slow down a little bit, but you're like just still caught chasing everything.
Well, I've got my golf tournament.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I got the golf tournament, so I've got to pack a bunch of Tito boxes this weekend.
How many people play in the golf tournament?
It's packed. It'll be about 170, 180.
Wow. All for the boys.
All for the boys. 24 years.
24 years. How many more years will you do it?
I want to do it just one more.
But you're not going to be allowed to.
I'm not going to be allowed to do that. I'm going to be allowed to do it until I fall over or hand it over, which I won't do.
Yeah, you won't do it.
I won't do it. I won't give it to somebody else. Guys are saying, why don't you just pass it down to who?
Yeah, who's going to
do it? To you. I know you guys. I'm not passing down with my name on that. That's not going to happen.
How do you think the Texas football team's going to be this year?
I think they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll be as good as they. I think they're going to lose one more game than they did last year. Now my partner thinks that. Oh no, I think he thinks this is the beginning of getting to the national championship. I said you don't have 2 great years, like you just made to the semifinals, and still think you're going to and have 15 guys go to the NFL, possibly 15 this year, 14 last year. I said you don't just repeat and rinse. It's not going to be. It's going to be a couple down times, and I think this may be the down one. Even with this great quarterback, I think it may be a down time.
Do you think he's good, Arch?
I think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think but they've had some great receivers that they picked up in that transfer portal. Now they've got one from Stanford that's coming.
I saw that.
If he's as good, the coach is good, the staff is good, but I just can't see them doing the same thing again, getting through the SEC like they've done, or like the last 2 years, winning a Big 12 championship and getting through the SEC in year number 1.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the SEC meetings up in Dallas in the summer, and I said to the guys from Auburn, and I said, Texas is coming to take over the SEC. And the guy goes, you don't just come and take over the SEC. I said, Texas is not coming to join your conference. They're coming to take over your conference. And I said, and that means decision-making within your conference. I said, that's just what Texas does. You just need to understand. He goes, this is the SEC. I'm like, we'll see. And what have they done so far? They've played in the championship game. They won the women's soccer in the conference. Women's basketball, they've been right there. They won swimming and diving. I said, they're not coming here just to be a part of your conference.
No.
That's not what Texas, I said, that's not what they do. And the guys, and I just said, and it won't take them long. They have all the means to take over your whole conference.
Right now.
I
mean, baseball is dominant.
And baseball is, yeah.
Softball is good.
Yeah, softball's right in the thick of things.
Softball's good.
Swimming, I said, Florida's been the big king of your swimming and diving for years. I said, that's about to end. Texas swimming has been the best forever.
Yeah.
And so I said, this is just what they do.
What do you think about Sark? Like, what a cool story he has. Like, kind of at the top, hit rock bottom, bounce back.
Yeah, he's pretty fortunate that Texas took a chance, a flyer on him as head coach, because he was pretty wild out in USC when he thought he was young and having it going on. He could have gotten to a point where he never got a second chance, but Nick Saban really gave him a second chance, and I thought that was kind of cool of Coach Saban to do so. He's taking advantage of this, and now he's got a brand new baby.
Yeah, I saw that. So he's got like a college-age kid and a brand new baby, right?
Yeah.
What's wrong with these people?
Stop it.
Yeah, what's wrong with these people?
Stop. I know. Stop, Coach.
Have you ever had the chance to meet Nick Saban?
I have.
Pretty good dude?
Yeah, he's a good dude. I just missed meeting Bear Bryant when I was coaching. He had passed away we had played them and we had beat them in a game when I was at Boston College, and he had just then passed away. I never got a chance to meet him. I did get a chance to meet a guy named Eddie Robinson that coached at Grambling. I had lunch with Eddie Robinson. He invited me to come to lunch with him.
Wow.
The great Eddie Robinson invited me. And I remember I was at the University of Illinois, and he said to me, he goes, wouldn't you like to, because there was a job opening at North Carolina A&T, predominantly black college. My father went to school there.
Okay.
He said, would you like to be the head coach there? And I said, Coach, my direction is a little different. I know it may sound strange, but I'm in the Big Ten. And to come back and even be a head coach in North Carolina. And I said, I don't know about moving my family to Greensboro, North Carolina. I don't know the logistics. I don't know what's acceptable. I said, I grew up in the Carolina. I said, I don't know if I can come back with a biracial family, to Greensboro, North Carolina at that time. This was 20-some, almost 30 years ago.
Right.
I said, I don't know what that would be like. I don't know what that would be like for my wife, for my kids. And I said, and I'm at University of Illinois, and now I got a chance to go to coach at University of Texas. I was just like, I don't know, decision-wise. Now, I made one bad decision in college coaching. I had an opportunity to go coach with Tom Coughlin, who was at Boston College with me. And so when I went to Illinois, Tom asked me to come back to Boston College and be his running back coach. I said, Tom, I just left Boston College to go to the Big Ten. Why would I come back there? Needless to say, he went from there to the Jacksonville Jaguars to the New York Giants. 2 Super Bowls later. Somebody said, that wasn't a smart move on your part. And I'm like, well, it was. I got to Texas.
It's worked out for you.
Yeah, it's worked out just fine.
You've got to coach some pretty cool people.
Yeah, I mean, and plus I got to coach with Coughlin.
Yeah.
He gave me that was the stability I needed in coaching. That guy was special.
Was he?
He was something. He's a different cat.
What lessons did you learn from him?
Just structure on being on time. And if you weren't 5 minutes early, you were late if you weren't 5 minutes early. And I mean, I just used to drive that through Ricky's mind. When he came from California, I said, you can't do it. You got to go run the steps. I'll be there with you at 6 a.m., but you're running. I said, you have to be just like everybody else. You have to be on time. You can't be on California time when it's Central Time in Texas.
Right.
You can't stroll into a meeting 5 minutes late thinking I said, it's not all right.
Yeah.
And so I had to do that. And that's been my thing, being on time. And I have a hard time with people that are late. It's hard for me.
Have you always been that way, or did that come from Coughlin?
I'd always been that way. I was always one of those people, like, no matter where you go, I'm there like 15, 20 minutes. I'm early. I'm the one sitting there first, than to be there right on time or 2 minutes later, But Coughlin drove that. Coughlin wanted to know at noontime when we had an hour off when I was coming back.
Wow.
He wanted to know if I was going to the bathroom. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm going to the bathroom, dude. I don't know how long I'm going to be. I said, it depends on what I have to do. He said, well, give me an estimate of how long it's going to take me to go to the bathroom, Tom. Yeah, he wanted to know.
Wow.
So you have an hour for lunch at Boston College. He wanted to know, when are you going to return? I'm like, dude, I got an hour. He goes, but are you going to come a little bit earlier, come back a little bit earlier? I said, I got an hour. What if I want to play racquetball for a whole hour? He goes, just tell me when you're coming back. Okay, I got to be back at 1. I'm going to be back at 1. He goes, you're late then, I'm like, yeah, I got it. Tom, I'll be back at about 1:15. Everything's good. He was amazing. He was a great coach. He was a good. I used to take his son fishing, since he wouldn't take his son fishing.
What was it like to coach Ricky?
Ricky is he was different. He's probably the smartest player that I've ever coached. Now, maybe not the smartest I've ever been around. Doug Flutie was the smartest player that I've ever been around. And I was around Tony Dorsett. Doug Flutie was amazing. Ricky was so knowledgeable of what we were trying to do. He was smart. He knew not only his position, he knew everybody else's position and what they had to do. That's kind of smart that he was. But he was just such a dynamic running back. He could do everything. I mean, he could have been a great linebacker. He played linebacker in high school too. He would have been an All-American. He could have been a wrestler.
Yeah.
But when it came to football, he knew everything that was happening in front of him. That's what made it so easy for him. People don't understand that the more you know about the position and what everybody else does, the easier it is for you.
Yeah.
And they just take it that it's just this natural ability to run and cut and all that stuff. I said, but if you know what they're actually doing in front of you, that does matter. So Ricky knew all that stuff.
When he came to Texas, did you know he was going to win a Heisman Trophy?
He said he's coming to Texas to win the Heisman Trophy. He never told me he was coming to graduate. He never said that to me. He never said, I'm coming to graduate from university. He goes, I'm coming to win the Heisman Trophy. And I remember laughing at him a little bit that day.
Did you?
Because right after that, he and I went over to meet Earl Campbell. You know?
Yeah, the Earl Campbell.
The Earl, yeah. And he was, Ricky was semi-impressed, but he wasn't. Ricky didn't get all that impressed with people. He wasn't even all that impressed with Earl.
No.
He was just like, yeah, I'm coming to win a Heisman too. And I'm like, I said, that guy already won the Heisman. That guy is unbelievable. That's a Hall of Fame football player.
Yeah.
But he was just different. As I said, meeting, Ricky never had dad in his life. He was raised with, the three girls, his two sisters and his mom. So he was around people that always could say yes to him.
Yeah.
There was very seldom anybody ever say no to that dude.
Was it hard to coach that?
No. Because I was the no guy.
You were the no
I
guy.
didn't have a problem. I'm the oldest of 8.
Yeah.
So I'd never had any problems with saying no to him. I had brothers and sisters and siblings that I could say no to all the time.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. Here's what you got to do. No, yes, no. So when he met me, he had to get a lot of no's from me. No, you can't do it that way. No, we don't do it that way. We're not going to do it that way. You're just like all the rest of those guys over there. And he was acceptable to that stuff. He never wanted to be a special guy. He never asked to be treated any differently than anybody else because he was going to work harder than those guys that were there anyway.
Yeah. He was just going to do it on his time.
Right. He just had a certain time.
Yeah.
I remember that when I started recruiting him and I had a running back meeting and I told the guys about Ricky, I said, when he comes here, he's going to be the starting fullback. And I had a whole room full of fullbacks.
Wow. And
they were like, well, how can you say that to us? And I said, I'm going to tell you, he's better than you are. You guys have a lot of work to do. He goes, guy's in high school. How can you say he's better than, I said, believe me, I know it. I've watched him. I've watched film of him. He's better than you guys are now. You have a lot of work to do if you don't think he's not going to be. And he was. And he came in, he was the starter.
What was the recruiting process like then versus what it's like now?
Well, then it was about, it was kind of more trust.
Right.
You really had to trust the guy that was recruiting you. And the guy who was recruiting you had to know not only him, but I had to know his family. I had to know the dynamics, who was pushing all the buttons. You go to some kids' houses and the kid will say, I'm the one who's making the decision here. And then dad would be in the corner winking at you going, not making any decisions. Not making the decisions on where he's going to go to school. Are you kidding me? I'm making it. We're making this decision.
Yeah.
I went to a kid's house in Syracuse. I tell the story how there was a running back in the state of New York. It was up in the Syracuse area. And, I looked at, he wanted to come to Boston College. At Boston College, I had like 4 guys that played in the NFL, running backs. I mean, and nobody was even recruiting them out of high school. And so this kid wanted to come and play running back. And I looked at his academics for a place like Boston College. And his mother was like, my son wants to be an engineer. And I said, you mean like, toot, engineer? And that was it. That was it. That was it. I was done with it.
You never talked again.
I got to that point. I was at that house, and every time I'd go for a visit there, I went to about twice, and they had the television on, and I was trying to explain about the school and everything else, and they had the television blaring. I don't know, maybe it was family night at certain time when I came there every time. And so the last time I went there, I went over and turned the TV down. And I said, listen, I've come here a couple times. I'm trying to explain to you. I'm trying to give your son an education here. And I never went back again. That was it. That was it. And I was fine with it.
You were good with it.
I was good with it because when they said the kid wants to be an engineer and I said, toot, I knew it was over with then.
And now the recruiting process is mostly money driven, right?
It's money driven, but I think there's still players, and male and female that have some ties to a university or maybe have a relative to go there that still believe in that whole thing. Because not everybody needs the money.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs the money. I mean, there are kids that can make it through a semester or two. Now they're pretending like they can't make a semester without having $1 million in the bank. And I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah. You've done it all. You've built the business. You've made the money. You conquered the grind. You're the lone wolf. And yeah, that got you here. But let's be real, it won't take you to the next level. The truth? Most successful people don't hunt alone. They join a tribe, a network of elite entrepreneurs, investors, or leaders who challenge them, push them, and hold them accountable to their biggest goals. Gobundance is that tribe. Extreme accountability, real wealth building, life-changing adventure, and a brotherhood who refuses to let each other play small. So here's the challenge. Stay the lone wolf or run with the pack. The right tribe changes everything. Find a link in the description. Apply today. This episode is brought to you by Loletta Birnbaum LLC, doing business justice. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, real estate investor, or a combination of each, you know how critical it is to have trusted legal advisors on your team. Loletta Birnbaum has built a stellar reputation providing exceptional legal services that make a difference. As a national business law firm, Loletta Birnbaum provides a wide variety of legal services, including general corporate, contract negotiations, mergers and acquisitions, succession planning, intellectual property, commercial litigation, shareholder disputes, real estate, and employment. Whether you're navigating a complex business deal, resolving disputes, or protecting your brand, their team delivers practical, results-driven legal solutions tailored to your goals. For inquiries, Gobundance members should email Loletta Birnbaum at gobundance@loletta.com. That's LAULETTA.com. You can also visit their website at www.lauletta.com to learn more about how they can do your business justice. This episode is brought to you by Apex Functional Health, the team behind age-defying health at Gobundance. If you're a high-achieving entrepreneur, investor, or leader, you know that your health is your greatest asset. But the truth is, traditional medicine isn't built for people like you. It treats symptoms, ignores root causes, and keeps you stuck in cycles of fatigue, stress, and subpar performance. That's where Apex comes in. They do not do Band-Aids. They engineer elite health transformations for men, women, and children looking to optimize their health and be proactive instead of reactive. Apex uses root cause functional medicine, advanced lab testing, and cutting-edge biohacking tools to help you optimize energy, eliminate the root cause holding you back, and reverse early signs of aging so you can live, feel, and perform at your best. Apex helps you take control of your health so you can lead with power, not burnout. Visit apexfunctionalhealth.com to schedule your free strategy call and see what's possible when your body finally works for you, not against you. What's slowing your business down? Is it endless emails, scheduling headaches, repetitive tasks that steal your time? My Outdesk has your solution. Their experienced global virtual assistants handle the busy work so you can focus on strategy, growth, and whatever matters to you most. From administrative support to marketing and customer service, they've got you covered at a fraction of the cost of hiring in-house. Scale smarter, save bigger, get the support you need today at My Outdesk. Arch didn't come to Texas. I mean, he got money, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But he came to Texas because he wanted to play it.
He wanted to play with Sark.
Right. He could have went anywhere.
There's not a college in the country that wouldn't have taken him. But that had nothing to do. That kid has money. He's had money all his life. So that money was, now it's just his. It was his money before that still was with the relatives. But now it's his money now.
Now it's his money. Yeah.
Yeah, and he knew he was going to get it, and he's going to be good with it. And he understands the whole game. He knows how to play the game. Yeah. Quiet guy that knows now he's got to be a leader on the team. So that's going to work out pretty well for him, because he seems to be like his uncles. You know, he seems to have a good sense of humor. You know, funny. But when it's time to get serious, I think he can get down to business. I think he can win a national championship there. I just don't know if it's next year.
Yeah, might be a couple of years.
It may be a couple of years.
You think we got 2 years of him?
I think you have 2 years of him.
Yeah.
I was thinking that if he had a great year this year, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't if you had a great year?
Yeah.
And you found the receivers, why wouldn't you leave here? Even if you didn't win a national, if you were the number one draft pick,
you're gone.
What is there? What is there to stay for?
Yeah.
You know, heck, he'll be close to graduating anyway. He'll be in his third year.
Right.
If you want to get that in the summer, I mean, you can go. You can always graduate.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you have to have this timing where you do that, but you don't get to be the first one taken in the NFL draft.
Do you think he's the first one taken at some point?
When the time comes, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's pretty special.
Well, plus, like I said, his uncles are going to make sure that people understand how good he is, and if he's at the right place, he can make it happen.
Well, and he's got them in his corner, right? Like he's got them guiding him, helping him. You know, I heard an interview once, and he's like, I asked my uncles about the 2-minute drill. It's like, I got a 90-second voice memo from Peyton and a novel from Eli. Like, we don't all get to do that.
You know, and you don't get to be around people like that. And he's just grown up around that. But I tell you, I think that you're going to see the Austin area in a boom with that family. You know, they do stuff in New Orleans area. If he's here for 2 years, there are going to be some things opening up with the name Manning on it a lot of places.
Especially if he wins a national championship.
Oh, forget about it. This is where you either come back to go to New Orleans or you come back here to live.
Yeah.
And bring, you know, you bring everything that you've had in your life and your name back to a place like, I mean, where else would you want to do that? You can do
Yeah.
that in the Austin area and you have such great success. Or go back to New Orleans.
Right.
They love it. They love those people in New Orleans.
Yeah. But Austin's special.
It is.
Austin's a cool place.
I think, and he likes it.
Yeah.
The kid likes this. He likes this area. I think he likes his teammates. He likes what Austin has to offer him. It's not just the university. Like I said, you can get your education.
Yeah.
But it's the people around here. I think that he really enjoys.
What do you think makes Sark such a special coach?
I think when you go through the ringer a little bit like he has, there's that, somebody's giving me a chance. So I think he's always in the spot where he wants to give a player an opportunity.
Yeah.
And really work with him. Plus, he's a pretty good quarterback coach, and he's one of the best offensive minds in the game right now. And he's gonna make sure that you're doing the right thing. He's not gonna let anybody cut any corners. He waited a long time to get a job like this.
Yeah.
So nobody's gonna cut any corners. Not his coaches, not his players. I think he has a certain way he wants to do things, and you're not gonna take him off of that way. Plus, he's in control.
Yeah.
University, they've got everybody. They got all the BBs in the box now. They're not all scattered all over the place. They're going to have a new president coming up.
Right.
They got the athletic director. They got Altai. They have all these people that are so together right now on the decision making that they have that it's got to work. But winning a national championship in the SEC is hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. You have to have a lot of luck. You have to have stuff where you don't get guys hurt, and every week is a battle in that conference.
It's a big conference.
It's big. It's real physical, and Texas has been known for kind of fluff over the years. They got the quality athletes, but they're not going to be tough enough. If we hit them in the face a couple times, they'll quit.
Yeah.
But they haven't.
Yeah.
Last 2 years, they haven't quit.
No.
They've been punched and kicked around, and they haven't quit.
Yeah.
And so you're starting to see that toughness, and a lot of that is the homegrown kids, like the offensive linemen that they don't go out and get from somewhere else. They get them out of high school in the Texas area, and their coaches, they keep them here. And I think you'll start to see that with a lot of players. That's when Sark will have it, when the great players don't leave the state.
Yeah.
If they come through, if you want them, they come to Texas. I mean, Texas A&M still gets great players. They don't have great coaches, but they get great players, and they've been able to keep them in the state. And they haven't won anything. They haven't done crap.
Yeah.
But they keep them coming.
Yeah. They keep people wanting to go there.
Yeah, they keep. There's something about some loyalty with Texas A&M and Texas. If you can keep the loyalty going, eventually you're going to hit the jackpot with the players.
Yeah.
Because it won't be about the money; it'll be about the university.
What do you think about this transfer portal?
It was going to get to that point, but they opened it up and never had a plan. Mm-hmm. And they just thought that it would just take care of itself. Well, now it's overwhelmed the whole system now. Now it's all about the money. It's not, they don't have anything that cuts you off. Well, you're a freshman, you can only make this much money. You're going to this, if you transfer within the conference, you have to sit out a year. Now that's good, but they should have a 1-year transfer rule. They shouldn't have these guys going from one school to the next school to the next school, going where the money is. I think that's I don't think it's going to kill it. You're not going to kill college football. Too much money in the TV.
It's too big.
It's too big. It'll be hard to kill, but it can be out of control.
Yeah.
That every year somebody says, I don't want to be at your place. I'm moving on to go there. You can stop that. You ought to be able to stop players. But what happened is you couldn't stop the coaches.
Right.
If a coach wants to leave, he can leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the players are now trying to catch up to the coaches.
How about the playoff system? You think the playoff system is going to continue to evolve and change?
It'll get bigger.
It'll get bigger. Just because there's so much money in it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll be at that 16-team deal here shortly.
Yeah.
I think probably 16 to 20 they'll cut it off.
Yeah.
And they'll they'll want somebody to have a Cinderella story that won't ever get to be a Cinderella story.
Unless we get to there.
Yeah, because the Ohio States and the Texas and the Michigans will always win out over the Texas States or Coastal Carolina.
Right.
That's had a great year. This is the Cinderella story. That won't happen.
No.
They'll always be able to get bought out. Because they won't be able to afford. They'll say they can afford it, but they won't be able to afford that.
How have you seen sports, like you've seen kids evolve, like whether it was a coach or whether it's just as the voice of Texas sports, you've seen kids come into Texas 18 years old and evolve and grow into men or grow into women or grow into humans. How have you seen sort of like sports transcend that or their development transcend sports?
I think their development transcends sports. And I think the the kids, I always, as I recruited, when I recruited for close to 25 years, the first thing I told the parent was, here's what I'm going to do. I will do everything in my powers to get your son a college education. And I mean everything I can. And I won't stop. And I chased down one guy for about 5 years afterwards to get his college degree from Boston College. Smart kid, he just didn't want to get it.
Didn't care.
Just had money in the family and didn't have to. And he finally went and got his degree. And so I had all those years. I can always say I've had everyone who's been with me 5 years or more who has a college degree. And that's important. It was important to me because that was a part of my pitch when I was at the house. I didn't pitch in that I was going to make your son an All-American. He's going to win the Heisman Trophy. I said, I'll do everything in my powers to get him a college degree. And I had a kid from Connecticut who I told who missed a couple classes. And I said, if you miss another class, I'll be calling your dad. He missed another class. And at the meeting in the afternoon, 2 days later, his dad was sitting in the seat in our meeting, sitting there. And when the kid came in, I said, I told you. He said, you called my father? I said, I told you I was going to call your father. You knew I was going to call your father. But not only did I call him, he was able to miss his job today and come up here to talk to you in person about not going to class. I said, I promised your dad that I was going to do everything I could to help you graduate. Well, that kid ended up graduating. He ended up being a graduate of Boston College. But those players, I never had a problem ever at Boston College. When they saw that Tyrone's dad was sitting in a seat at the meeting when they all walked in, including Tyrone, who came in there just before the meeting started, and there his dad was sitting, he was stunned.
Wow.
He was stunned. So I think you can do both. You can get kids that can grow up and make it happen that are away from the field, and they learn a lot on the football field. But there's so much to learn if you give a kid an opportunity in the classroom and meeting other people on that campus, because that's where you do it. It wasn't for me. It wasn't the football that did it for me. It was the people that I came in contact. Whether they were classmates or friends of friends who their dad and I've been invited to their house or just to come over and talk. That's where you meet people. That's what you do in college. You network.
Yeah.
You can be the brightest all you want to, but sometimes that doesn't work out. There's a lot of college educated people that are doing dishes downtown Austin. But if you meet the right people, then you come across as somebody can influence and help people out, you got a really good chance.
Yeah.
That's at a college experience. And Ricky is one of those dudes. He is one of those guys. He was as good of an athlete as he was a smoozer. He could smooze with the best of them. I mean, it was like, man, he'd go into your house. Next thing you know, he'd be in the kitchen cooking, and he smoozed my first wife like to no ends. He was like one of the kids. It's like, what is Ricky doing in my house now? Oh, he just came over. He didn't have class. What's he doing? Oh, just hanging around watching TV. I'm like, there's other things he could be doing. No, he just didn't have anything to do, so he just drove out here. That's just a part of the deal. He's the best at that. He's the best.
Who on your journey influenced you the most besides Tom Coughlin?
If there was a coach that did it, it would have been probably one of my high school coaches or my wide receiver coach. Skip Capola at Boston College was the guy that, I was the oldest of 8, so I was kind of bossy. So when I got to BC, he said, I'm your boss now. I'm the boss. And he said, the way you want to do things is not going to be the way we're going to do things. So I had somebody who ended up being my boss. So he was a big influence on me. And my mother was the biggest influence in my life.
What did she teach you?
She just, patience. Like I said, oldest of 8. She worked all her life. Everybody went to college. She was going to make sure that we all did the right thing. And, I became a gardener because of my mother. She was always, no matter where we lived, if it was the size of this table, she was going to have a garden there. So she turned me into a gardener, and I love flowers and plants and things like that. But I mean, she taught me more than anything with patience. Boy, you talk about missing somebody every day. Wow. She was absolutely the best. She would go to she would go to games. She would be at all the games and stuff. Like my dad was like Papa was a Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
That was my father. Dude was like a Rolling Stone. We would go from one place. We'd go from the Carolinas to Pennsylvania to living with neighbors. That guy was a Rolling Stone for sure. And but my mom was a big influence for me.
She was like that steady, stable rock.
Always. And she was always going to find a way to get it done. I'm like, I don't know how you're getting it done, but find a way. I ended up going to, I went to Catholic school from first grade through college.
Wow.
And she found a way to get me into private school, and just her influence was awesome.
So you still garden?
I'm still gardening. Oh yeah, I'm still gardening. I mean, I go from little small gardens to 13 gardens on a property, and wasting money. Things will die, but I'll replant them and let's go again. I like gardening. I love outdoors. I love plants and exotic stuff and seeing it grow.
Yeah.
I make trips to go to Seattle just to see the foliage at Seattle. That's tulip festivals and things like that. I love stuff like that. I love plants and gardening.
You didn't pick the greatest state to love gardening.
No, tough place.
Tough place.
Tough place. Too much caliche.
Yep.
Be surprised at how many things can grow in caliche. Caliche can hold a lot of water.
Yep.
So if you get the right mixture in the caliche, you'll find out things can really, really grow.
Right.
But pretty stuff, soft leaf plants, not going to make it.
No.
It's too hot.
Too hot.
Just too stinking hot here. And I've tried everything. I've tried those beautiful hydrangeas, those beautiful puffy hydrangeas that you see on the East Coast. I've tried to make them work here. Every year I try to make. I've given up. I'm not doing it anymore. I find it just won't work. As soon as the sun hits those things, you can't shade them enough.
Right.
You can't unless they're indoors and you have you can do the whole environment with the air conditioning and the lighting. You can't do it outside here. This to the rays of the sun here is just. It won't make oak trees. Yes.
Yeah.
Oak trees. Plenty of cactus.
Cedars, man. The cedars go crazy here. They do great.
Yeah, and I've actually there's a part of my property now I've done the xeriscape stuff with a little valley that runs through. When water does go through, it kind of goes through there, and it'll stay wet for 3 months in there, even when it dries up. But I've done some stuff with some cactuses, some flowering cactus and things in there. But I can't put the kind of plants I really would like to plant. They won't survive.
They won't survive here.
And I noticed now that I put cactuses in there, that's when I saw the snake. I guess should be cactus, snakes. Don't that go? That seems to go together. Rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
That should go together. But I didn't figure that out till just this year. But I'm still at it. I've still got some gardening to do. I've got a 15 by 15 foot vegetable garden now. It's a big one, and I do about one series of tomatoes, and then I'm done too. I can't make them come back after I pull them off the first time, because by then it's June and it's over with here in June.
Well, you can only have so many tomatoes.
That's true. I mean, I'm trying to. I'm preparing myself for the end of time.
Oh, you are. You're one of those. You're one of those prepper people.
Yeah, I'm prepping myself.
So you got a lot of cans of soup.
Not yet, but every year I said I'm going to learn how to can stuff, and we need to get some sauces and get the peppers and everything else. All the cucumbers. I love cucumbers, so I'm like, all these viney plants. Can we do something with them? And my wife is like looking. She goes, "We're not canning all this crap. Are you kidding me?"
You make homemade salsa.
See all those things that you're talking about. I say I'm going to do it, but when you go out there in June and start digging around the garden, it's like, I'm going back into the air conditioner. Let this stuff die.
Yeah, I'm going back inside.
We'll do it again next spring.
Go back inside.
But I do my winter gardens. I love lettuce. I love fresh lettuce, and I love fresh broccoli. And so I'll get out there in the garden and I'll do all those things. And I can keep it going till I still have lettuce. The broccoli's gone, but I still have different types of lettuce in my garden right now. And until we hit that, where we get to the 93 degree, 94 degree temperatures every day, that lettuce, because the mornings in the 50s and 60s, that lettuce will hold.
Right.
But once you start those afternoons and those soft leaf things, they go. But I love fresh lettuce. I love fresh broccoli. I don't like squash. The stuff that's pretty easy, the viney stuff. Don't like the texture. I'm going to learn how to eat zucchini.
Okay.
I've got to put on. I'm about 153 pounds, which is awful for me. I want to be 160 so badly, and people are dying to lose weight. I'm trying to gain weight, and I'm not a brisket person. I don't like to eat a lot of meat. If I eat meat, that means I'm eating hamburgers, I'm eating junk. I'm going to some fast food place because I'm not grilling it. But I'm going to learn how to eat brisket, pinto beans. Got to start eating more beans. I'm learning all these things. 3 meals a day, can't do it. Try.
You were doing the intermittent fasting before intermittent fasting was cool.
Yeah, but I people want to lose weight. I'm trying my best. I want 10 pounds so bad. I don't want to. I weighed myself a couple months ago. I weighed 146 pounds. my waist is now a 30. I haven't been a 30 since I was in like 8th or 9th grade. I mean, my pants like fall down. I go to the last belt loop, and I thought 32 was. I said,
Good.
that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
that's good.
Hey, but 30, that's not good. Because what happens is you get to be 70. My dad was a fragile man when he died at 88 years old, but he started to get fragile looking.
Right.
You know, he couldn't play golf anymore. You know, knees and hips and everything else. But when he died, he's a fragile dude. I don't want to be a fragile dude. I don't want people kicking sand in my face at the beach. You know, I want to be able to still defend myself. I want to be able to go gardening, and I want to go play. I want to do some things with. I want to be able for my grandkid to throw a ball at me, and I can react enough that I'm not going to fall down trying to pick up the ball.
Yeah.
And golf is tough enough. I mean, the winds that we've had over the last 2 months, I've been to places where I'd be ready to put the ball down in the tee, and that gust of wind comes up. I'm like bracing myself before I fall over on my face.
Yeah.
I said, I really don't want to go out like that.
You got to get stronger.
I got to get stronger, and it's probably not the weight thing more than it is putting the muscle on. Yeah, and I've lost all the, I've had a bad back. I had reconstructive surgery on my thoracic back years ago. So every day is a back problem for me. It just depends on how bad is it, how bad it's going to be. I had a knee replacement. They told me how my knee's going to be better than ever, and I told them nothing's better than ever when you replace something at this age. Don't tell me how it's going to be better than it was. So I just don't want the pain.
Yeah.
If you relieve the pain for me, I can take care of the rest. So.
Did it relieve the pain?
It did.
Yeah.
I did. I went through 3 years, and Holly knows Joyce was on me. She goes, "How are you doing this? Your knee, they've already told you you're bone on bone on bone. Doesn't it hurt to play golf?" I said, "It hurts all the time, but I'm going to go play golf. I'm just going to get that done." She goes, "Well, why don't you get it fixed?" And so I worked out for 3 months before I had surgery on my knee. I was back in 6 weeks.
Wow.
And that was from the working out, and that was intensive working out. It made it so well that my left knee got better. I have no pain in my left knee.
Have you always been so committed to being like a growth-minded person?
Yeah, I do. Mentally, physically, because I saw how people kind of disintegrated in their lives. I've seen the older people they just stop doing the things, and once you stop, I mean, you're losing if you stop moving. I mean, You're done. Yeah. You really are done. That really is true. Once you get to a point where, I spend enough time every once in a while sitting, watching court TV and listening to all the bad stuff. Once you get to the point where that's where your day is, you're done. So if I can go 2 or 3 hours outside, shoveling mulch off the truck, even doing something like that, and I've fallen off my truck a few times. And see, there's the other thing is, once you stop moving, you start losing your balance. And I live, and out here in the Dripping Spring, nothing's even.
No.
You trip over everything. I mean, I was falling down twice a month. I mean, once you go, and once you start to fall, you don't brace yourself. You don't stick your arms out there because you'll break your wrists and your elbows. I've learned how to fall. I can move in the air now. It's like the Matrix. I know how to turn. As I'm in the air, I'm already thinking, how are you going to hit? How are you going to keep your head out of the game? And so you can fall I don't have much of a butt cheek left, but I know how to fall there without breaking a hip. But I can't afford to fall on my face, and I can't afford to break an arm. And I have to get better. That's where it's not the weight thing, it's the strength thing that comes in. Because once you start falling around and losing your balance, it seems like you're done. And like I said, I watched my old man do that. I just watched him get old and not move the way he used to move, and not want to play. Now, like I said, I'm not trying to play competitive. I'm not doing marathons. If I can go for a nice walk, that's good. But I got to be able to play golf.
Yeah, you're a big golfer.
I'm a big golfer, and I'm moving up in the tee box here. When I hit, in June when I turn 70, I move up for good. For good. Never to come back. Never to be where the young guys play. I don't even care. Still getting my strokes. Everything's working in that way. But I just got to stay. I got to stay active.
Would you say you're a competitive person?
Yes, very.
Always been?
I've always been really competitive. Being the oldest, I've had to kind of compete, and where I grew up in Pennsylvania, moved from North Carolina to Pennsylvania. I had been around a lot of different things. I had played Little League baseball. Then I didn't want to play baseball anymore. I got to high school and I learned how to play football, and that was it for me once I got into that. But golf, I never had a chance. My dad played golf when I was younger, but he would never let me play golf with him.
Why not?
I shagged balls for him in Greensboro, North Carolina, when I was He used to give me a baseball glove and a shag bag, and he'd do chips and he'd hit balls, and I would chase down golf balls with a baseball glove.
Wow.
And so that's how I learned how to play baseball. But he never let me play a round of golf with him when he's with his buddies. I never got a chance to play with my dad until he was probably in his 40s or 50s.
Wow.
But I actually played, when I was in college, I actually played a round of golf with my dad. He just never let me do that. You know, and I've played with my son, you know, but that was his deal, and I was fine with that. You stay with your old friends, and I'll shag balls for you. I'll wait to get to do this when it's my time, and now it's my time. And I love it. I love to compete in golf with, and it's anything.
Yeah.
It's anything that I'm capable of being able to do. But there's certain things with this back. This says no. I mean, a round of golf cost me a real day of pain.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had to go from, and I think once you get to the point where you can get your weight up, get your strength up, there's certain things like I have to take a pill in order to help me survive a day after a round of golf, or I can't. I have to medicate myself in order to have a decent day the next day,
Right.
a normal day. And boy, it'd be nice to get away from that. And you know, the Advils of the world, Tylenols, the Vicodins to keep you to survive. But you know, I mean, I was told when I had my total reconstruction of my thoracic back, your probably golf days are over. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen.
No chance.
We're going to play in pain. You know, I'm 24 years sober, so I haven't had a drink in 24 years. So that was also the cure-all for a while.
What was the reason you got sober?
I just wanted to see. I wanted to see if I can do it. My mother was an alcoholic, so I watched what my mother went through, and that was awful to see. I mean, when I was a football coach, I had to come back from my young job at Boston College and come and put her in rehab twice.
Wow.
And I was the last to know that my mother was an alcoholic. I'm the oldest, but I was the last to know because I was off and gone. And I stayed pretty mad at my siblings for quite a while about not letting me know what was going on. But to see how bad she was, it was not fun. So I had whatever that is that she had. I had the capabilities of that happen to me, and it did. And I just decided. I remember when I decided, it was during golf time, that let's see if I can go this long without a drink, because I made all kinds of excuses to drink.
Yeah.
You know, the radio business. I had to stay late night coaching when I was out at a bar somewhere till it closed.
Yeah.
You know, doing radio, getting up, staying up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning when the bar would close, get back in and do a 6 o'clock show.
Oh my gosh.
You know, come home not knowing how did you get here actually. You know, so I decided I was going to quit, and I said, let's see if I can quit for a month. I couldn't do it a month. I said, let's go down and see if I could do it a week. I couldn't do it for a week. I got to the point where if I was driving, I had to have a 32-ounce beer in my cup holder when I drove around town to do things.
Jeez.
And you know, and I grew up in Pennsylvania in the steel mills, and you know, we'd get on the bus for school and we'd be drinking potato brandy, homemade potato brandy. And so then it was just a part of my life as a kid growing up in the steel mills. And then I started to drink Jack Daniels. And I started to drink Jack Daniels straight.
Oof.
I mean, I could drink at a sitting, I could drink a half a bottle of Jack and go on and and you wouldn't tell if it was just a normal day for me.
Wow.
So I did that throughout my radio career. I did that through my coaching career. You know, and it doesn't pain me because I was just fortunate enough to still live. I mean, I could have run over somebody, I could have killed myself. That's just luck. And you think about how good of a coach could you have been? Where could you have been if you didn't, you know, if you'd have taken your time, got your rest, done all the things that you did instead of being out all times of night, drinking, pretend you were doing something. Hell, at one time I told my wife there was night golf.
She believed you?
Oh yeah, she even went into that. There was night golf that they were having lights there, and all the people always laughed at me about, how about you told your wife there was a night golf? Yeah, and once I stopped, I went to a place in Austin called La Hacienda Solutions. I went and I took a 6-week program, and I was in there with kids who were heroin addicts, and you know, there were, you know, some real prominent people had their kids in there, and they were telling me, they were like, so have you hit bottom? I said, I looked at them, I said, why in the hell would you want to ever hit the bottom? Why would you put yourself through that? I said, I don't feel like I'm at the bottom right now. And I'm like, and you shouldn't want to ever be there. Why go there? Why would
Yeah.
when you want to stop yourself before you hit bottom?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you got to feel that pain. I'm like, no, dude, this is enough pain already. I don't want this pain. I want to know how to get rid of it. And I never had a relapse. The day that I quit drinking was the day that I quit drinking. I've never had one drink ever since the day that I decided to quit. And my friends, are at the golf course, and they said, nope, can't go to the card girl and have a beer, can't have a shot. It's done. I said, that's fine. And I never had a drink again. For 24 straight years, I've not had no relapses, none of that. Very lucky on that. And that's because of coaching.
Yeah.
That's the discipline that came with coaching and all that stuff. I think that's what coaching has done for me. It's helped me not become a stone cold alcoholic. Mm-hmm. That's why I got into the coaching business, to save my own life.
Wow.
And like I said, I watched my mother kind of disappear to the alcohol.
Were you able to forgive your siblings for not telling you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. That didn't take very long. I was just very disappointed that I was probably more disappointed in me. How could I be the last to know?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't there. I wasn't around
Right.
when all this stuff was happening. And my mother had lost her best friend to breast cancer. And I think that sent her in the downward spiral.
Yeah.
And she never came back from that. So
wow. And then what got you sober? Was it just your own choice, or did somebody draw an ultimatum and say
no one drew anything. I could fake it out with the best of them. I could come home and I could lie, and I could go to work, and I could go coach football, and I wasn't like drunk at practices and things like that. It's just when it was my time was drinking time.
Yeah.
I would, the head coach of the University of Texas, when we were at Illinois together, so I worked with him for 9 years. He would go home on Friday nights. I would be the one to take care of the players at the hotel. So when I would put them to bed, I was then gone. I was gone. I would come back to the hotel 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and coach the next day.
Wow.
Coach a game. And I had done that from Boston College all the way through the University of Texas. I mean, there were times where the head coach would be standing beside me. I'd be sweating through everything. And the coach would say, did you go out last night? I said, of course I did. I would be sweating. I mean, it would be coming through my pants.
Wow.
That's how it was. I mean, and to go and be in the state of Texas and coach like that, it was hot here.
It's hot.
But I would go out. I'd go to Trudy's, and I'd be drinking Jack Daniels, 4 or 5 shots of Jack a night, a couple 6-packs. And I'd go back to the hotel, crash for about 2 hours. I was ready to coach. I was ready to go.
Because you loved it? You just loved coaching, loved working with the kids, loved the game of football?
Yeah, the drinking was just a part of what I did. It wasn't like it was, how could you do this? I'm like, I don't know. I just do it.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal to me. It's like part of my day. But it just got to be to the point where I said, can I do this? Can I survive without having this? And once I figured out I couldn't, I said I had to quit.
Yeah.
And I had friends all around me that helped me quit. I went to 2 AA meetings, and I would not poo-poo AA meetings to anybody. If that's what makes it work for you, you should go. And you should continue to go. But I went to 2 of them. It made me want to drink. It just did, because the people at the AA meet who quit drinking were smoking 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think that can kill you too. It may kill you quicker.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't go, so I was getting nothing out of that. I just decided, that I just needed to quit. Just don't drink again. And so I have to this day, I've got a commitment to myself and my life. If I were to ever drink, you would read about me in the paper.
Yeah.
Because I'd be that guy that, man, he took that gun and really did that. Because I know what the outcome is for me.
Yeah. Once you go back.
Yeah. Once I go back, which I'll never go back.
You never go back.
Yeah. So I take it as drinking is like bad food. It's something that I'm not going to eat that. So I'm not going to drink that. And it never crosses my mind. It only crosses my mind about drinking is when I go back to my home state in Pennsylvania, where my friends still can't believe that it's been this long, and that somebody will come out of nowhere and say, hey, listen, you can have a drink with us. We're not going to tell anybody. Nobody knows. I said, yeah, they do. I know. And I can't even think that way. So like I said, I've never fallen into that, but I get that 48 hours into a trip back to my own homeland, somebody's going to ask me, hey, how about for old time's sake, let's just go out and have a beer. I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Can't do it.
And I can't, and I never will. That's why my work with guys like Tito Beveridge, when I told Tito, I have not, your product, you've been your 25th year. I said, I've never, ever had your product. And he laughs. And I'm like, he goes, all those years you've been getting all these, we sponsor this golf tournament. I said, I don't even know what your product tastes like. I don't even know what that vodka tastes like. I said, but $10 billion tells me it's pretty good. He goes, it's the best. He said, it's the best. You don't have to taste it. He said, a lot of people are tasting it.
So you say Ricky was a big schmoozer, like one of the best. But don't you think it takes one to know one? Like, it sounds like you could schmooze your way through anything.
Sure, I could talk. Like I said, you get to be the oldest of age. You get to be able to talk your way through and out of a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're one of those people with addictions, you know how to talk your way out of a lot of things. Yeah. You've learned how to play the game, and you learn how to play the games with others. So, and I did that with my family. I never drank at home. Wow. You would never see me doing Jack Daniels. I'd be the normal guy, have a beer, you know, with the family around, but you never see me sitting at night with a thing of Jack Daniels. But if I was at a bar, I would have hey, leave the bottle. I can do this myself, or slide it down.
Wow.
I'm good to go.
Wow.
And then it just, I could lie with the best, because people with addictions are great liars.
Yeah.
They just, that's the part of that they learn. They learn how to lie.
Yeah.
And they become really, really good at it.
Yep.
And that will carry on whether you have the addiction or not. You know, you can carry on, but it also, it's helped me help a lot. I've helped a lot of people along this whole path. That's what it's been about for me, you know, talking with kids, and, you know, just the fact when I went into the program at La Hacienda, when those kids were talking about heroin and talking about hitting the bottom, and I still had enough whereabouts for me to say to them, the bottom? What in the hell would you, I'm like, are you at the bottom, kid? No, but I'm getting close. And I'm like, oh, that's going to make you better?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not what's going to make you better because you hit the bottom.
Yeah.
I said, it could kill you to hit the bottom. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to know what the bottom of alcoholism. To me, I'm already at the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, because it's made me think about how good could I have been if I were not doing that.
Right.
And I think that's kind of always going to bother me. I say it doesn't, but because it's all a learning, you know, the whole life is just a nice process of learning. Yeah. I'm always going to think in my mind, what could I have been? How good a coach could I have been? You know, I thought I was pretty good as a coach, you know, coaching 9-10 NFL running backs. But what could I have been? Could I have had an opportunity to be a head coach? Did the drinking keep me back from learning something else? So that's all. But once again, I say, you know what? It's taught me about the patience. It's taught me some discipline. And there's nothing better for the human race than adversity. There's nothing better in anybody's life than adversity. You're not going to get anything that's going to happen to you better than, you've got to have adversity somehow, some way in your life. I don't know too many people that haven't, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's just a part of life. And that was my adversity. So I take it that way. Instead of being mad at myself about how good could I have been, have I overcome the adversity? And that's been kind of.
Do you think it's a regret? Like, do you regret having done what you did? Or is it just like, I wonder what could have been?
I wonder what could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of regret that. If I could have spent those kind of times, you know, where I was good with people, could I have worked myself into could I have been Steve Sark? Could I have been Sark right now?
Yeah.
Myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That could have been the path that I could have taken. I could have paid more attention to that than if I was going to be at the Alligator Grill at 12:30 at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, slamming down Jack Daniels, trying to be the life of the party. Yeah. It's also saved me a lot of money.
Yeah. Would have saved you a lot of money.
It saved me
would have made you a lot of money too.
It would have made me a lot of money. So yeah. But once again, it's just that adversity that you got to find a way to overcome that. And so far, so good. I got a wife that's helped me along the way, that's never going to let me get to that part of it. Plus, I got me. Me's not going to let me get to that spot.
Have you always been this disciplined? Like, were you just born with this discipline, or is it a muscle you've had to develop over time?
I think it was kind of with it. You know, my grandfather was that guy who I had taught my son, and you know, my grandfather was a guy who ended up with Alzheimer's, and he died in his 60s. I mean, he used to just walk up and down the street all day long. That was his deal. He'd walk all the way a couple of miles and walk back. He'd walk a couple of miles, walk back, come in, drink water, and that was his deal. And he took me fishing one time, and I was late, just a little bit late. And he said, "Don't ever be late again." You know, it was like the Coughlin thing, just a little discipline thing. And I remember when my son, when I went fishing, you know, AJ, and I went fishing in New Hampshire, and I was there with the football coaches at Boston College. I said, "We're leaving at 5 o'clock." Well, I'm on the deck. It's 5 o'clock, AJ comes running out of the house. It's 5:15, and I'm out in the rowboat about 200 yards away. Just kept on going. I kept on going. He was crying. He cried for 2 hours at that dock. And from that point on, that guy was there at 4:30 in the morning at that dock, and he's always been that on-time guy now. And I said, it's not a big deal. It's just that's where you wanted to go. You thought I was going to turn around and come back and get you? Nope. You just don't get to go fishing with me.
So how do you teach him not to lose his wallet?
I don't know what that is. That's on him. That's on him. That's his deal from high school. I said, I can't understand how you do that, but he's done it, and he's done it a number of times. And I'm like, doesn't it only take you like one time to lose your wallet and your driver's license? You don't have to go to the DMV. I mean, to go back to that place? You want to go and stand in that line and talk to those folks? Not me. No. I now have lost money. I put money and dropped money somewhere.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go get my driver's license over again ever.
No, that DMV sucks.
No, it does.
It's the worst.
No, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I was pretty disciplined as an athlete. I would get up and do some of the things that I needed to do, and never had a problem being disciplined in that way.
Are you still a pretty routine person? Like, do you have your morning routine? And
get up early.
Yeah.
Got to get up early. You know, I've done radio shows from 6 o'clock and done 5-hour radio shows. There's a lot of talking. But I get up at 3:30 in the morning to do a 6 o'clock show because I don't like to do night before prep. I like to do a morning of prep. I like to get there, see how my day is, see how I'm going, and talk about things then. I can't stay up late. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, I'm down.
You're asleep in the chair.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's the weekends. I can't go to bed late.
Yeah. Because
I'm gonna get up early. No matter what time I go to bed, I'm still gonna get up. If I go past 6:30 on a weekend, that's I always say I'm gonna sleep to 8 o'clock today. Never happens. And there's nothing out there for me. It's still dark. There's nothing. It's like I'm missing something of the world.
Yeah.
If I don't get up, if I get up at 8 o'clock, I feel like I've missed 5 hours of the world going about its business. When there's nothing going, hell, nothing opens up at 8 o'clock even anymore. Even on the weekends.
Yeah.
You can only go to breakfast.
Yeah.
For me, it would be coming in from the bar somewhere.
But you just always get up early.
But I just said I like getting up early.
Yeah.
And that was from the old grandfather, my fishing trip. I learned how to get up. I love to fish, and I like to get up early and go do things early. And if you don't like to do things early around this place,
oh, you're in trouble.
Yeah. But you know when I play golf 11:30, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. I'll play golf. It's 110 degrees. I don't play in the cold.
You just
I hate the cold.
Yeah.
I hate the cold. I can never get warm.
I'm the same. I moved here from Wisconsin thinking like I was this tough kid, and now it's 65. I'm in a sweatshirt and gloves and hand warmers in my shoes. And
here's what I won't do. I won't play golf if it's 62 or under.
Yeah.
My rule is, it's going to be 59, but it's sunny. I'm like, well, good luck. I'll play some other time because I'm not going out there.
No.
I don't care if the sun is shining. I've got a 62-degree rule.
So do you set a lot of rules for yourself?
Yeah, I do some stuff that I'll set down that I do. The golf thing is, my wife hates the fact that I go out and play if it's 103 degrees. She goes, you can die out. You can die out there. And I've had the heat stroke before when I didn't hydrate myself well enough. I start seeing things like mirages on the golf course. And I've had guys that have said, they said, just sit in the car. And I said, no, you got to take me where there's air conditioning. I need to be in a car. I said, I will die in this cart. You just going out there and just leaving me in the car thinking I'm going to be all right, I'm going to die. And so I've come off a golf course where I've gone, all I do is sit in the car in the air conditioning, then I'm back to being fine. But she hates the fact that I will go play golf. If there's a golf date with the guys and it's 104 that day, she goes, you can play tomorrow. It's only going to be 96. No, I'm playing today. Told the guys I'm playing, and I don't bow out of golf outings. I just, if I've got a sore back, I'll do everything I have to. But if my knees bother me, if my elbows bother me, I had carpal tunnel. I was right back. The guy said, he said, this is up to you. It's all healed. You're not going to screw up anything in your hand. That's up to you. But you got stitches right there. So if you go and play and you tear up those stitches, the only thing you're going to do is tear up those stitches, and it's not going to heal the right way. I said, okay, I'll wait till the day you take them out. He took them out. I was out there the next day with the I just don't miss my golf days. I don't do it.
But it sounds like even more than that, like you keep your word. If you give somebody your word, I'm going to be there.
Sure.
You keep your word.
Oh yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the best as I can.
Yeah.
I will keep my word on something. And that's part of the coaching deal too. I've had to, like I said, if I tell a parent that I'm going to do this for their kid, I'm going to do everything in my powers to do that. And if I, these kids out in, that I do the golf tournament for, if I tell the head guy, here's what I'm working to do is get you a nice golf cart to take people around, which that's what I'm going to do this year. I've gotten pretty, as you said, smooth. I'm pretty good at that. Good. I've got the people that are out here at Tractor Supply that have been fabulous over the last couple of years. I've met a guy, and he's saved us thousands of dollars. They've got these golf carts that hold like 6 or 7 people. Yeah. So when they come out to this school, I want to get that for them. Nice. When this golf tournament's done, get them a brand new golf cart. So if people come out to see what the school is like out in Driftwood, they're in a comfortable, brand new golf cart. So I'm excited about do that. And as I said, I've had people in my corner that have believed that I could get things done too. So that's a part of it. Well, Holly knows. I've been to her. I've been when they had the boat play. I was there every year for the golf tournament. I just had to have, whether it's life jackets, I had to have anything that they could give to me to make this thing go. And so we made this thing work for 24 years. Yeah, I'm gonna try to bag out.
You're not gonna be 25. You're not bagging out.
I'm gonna bag out. Yeah, I'm gonna say, guys. I'm gonna say that when they go out this year, I'm gonna say, you know what? Next year may be our last year. And then I'm gonna get during the whole thing is, so what are you doing next year? You leaving town or something? You're gonna die or anything? I'm like, no. They're like, as my wife said, what do you think you're gonna do for 6 months? Hang around with me? I'm like, she goes, I don't want you around me for 6 months. So I gotta find a way to. And I like to do I like to travel. My wife likes to travel. I like to do some stuff with her because I've never really traveled. I've not been out of this. I've been to Mexico, but I've never gone anywhere. Yeah. I'd like to do that sometime in my life. I've been in enough places in this country that have been pretty cool, but I'd like to go somewhere else. Nice. I like to go see what they're bitching and moaning about in these other places. We got it terrible. I like to go see how terrible do you really have it. I like to go to Spain. Yeah. I like to go to Italy. I like to go to some place like that. Yeah. And see what those kind of countries are like.
What was it like watching Ricky win the Heisman, go to the NFL, and then just get the heat that he received on the backside of his NFL journey?
Well, he was always going to be different. I mean, he wasn't going to conform to what they wanted him to be, and that was going to be tough for him. It wasn't going to be tough on them. Yeah. He was going to, in his way. I said, you're going to lose a lot of things, but you're still going to do it your way. You're going to go live in a tent. You're going to go to Australia and live in some damn tent, and not care what people think. But there's a lot of things to be lost in that way. But he did stuff the way he wanted to. I think the NFL, they were pretty gracious on some of the stuff they did. Like now he could get away with a lot of those things. Yeah. But back then, it's like NIL. You could get away with a lot of things now, but he couldn't get away with them at that time. And he was gracious about that. He never fought it. He never complained about it. When they said you can't play in the NFL, okay, bye. Yeah,
he didn't care.
He didn't care. He just did things his way. His attitude was pretty good. People always thought, man, you could have been this. Just sort of like I'm thinking about coaching. Mm-hmm. You could have done this if you'd have done this that way. But he just was not going to. It wasn't conformed. That's just the way Ricky is. That's the way he was born that way. He wasn't going to change that way. He's still that way today. Now, as a businessman, he's had to conform to some things. Yeah. Because now he has kids. And now he's not only has kids, he's a grandfather. Yeah. So he's had to mature a little bit. And he has matured. He's matured a lot. Yeah. He's matured a lot. I mean, he's better with time-wise stuff. If he says he's going to do something, he'll generally show up. I used to hold my breath when I first got in radio. Oh, I'm going to come on your show tomorrow. I'd be like, Ricky, the show starts at 6 o'clock. You say you're going to come on at 7 o'clock. The time is different from where you are. It's 2 hours different. I'll be there. And I used to go, oh, my God. And I remember we'd be waiting for Ricky through a break and through a next break. And we would always be like, all right, we're on Ricky time again. Yeah. But, over the last couple of years, if he says he's going to show up on the YouTube show, bang, he's right there. He's first up. He's ready to go. So it's taken him a while to get to a point. People mature differently. Yeah. As long as they can get to that point before their time is up. That's what counts. If you can get there, doesn't matter if you get it done at 50, you get it done at 60, or you get it done at 18. As long as you get it done. Yeah.
What was cool about Ricky is I've had some time with Ricky, and I've got to learn a lot from him.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things he said to me was, he's like, I never wanted to be in the NFL. My only dream was to win a Heisman Trophy. And he's like, once I did that, I kind of looked around and said, like, okay, now what? And everybody else's dream for me was to run in the NFL and play and play and play. He's like, but I had already accomplished everything I set out to.
Dude, that dude would still be playing after our games. When I lived at Circle C, games on Saturday, on Sundays, he would be at my house in the streets playing football with the kids, like knocking the kids into cars. Like, oh, I just got hit by Ricky Williams. Yeah, you just got punished by him because he didn't let up on you. He hit you like you were a grown man.
Yeah.
And those kids would come out, they'd be limping, they'd have slings on, they'd have bruises all over the place. And he felt just as good about running them over and running past them on a Sunday. And he would come back where he would dive for a ball in the streets and screw up his hands or his fingers. He'd come back, and the trainers over at the university would be like, "Wait a minute, you didn't do that in the game. The game was Saturday. I never saw that bruise on your hand. Where'd you get that?" "Oh, I was playing football on Sunday with the kids." "Oh, really?" In the street, diving in the street. And he didn't never let those kids down. He would show up on Sundays, no matter after treatment. If he was banged up, he would be playing with them, and he treated them like they were adults. I mean, he hit those kids so hard. He would hit AJ and his friends so hard and knock them into parked cars.
Yeah.
I was like, man, you're going to kill a kid out here.
But he was playing.
But he was playing, and they were playing too, and they loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he talking about competitors. Whew.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're going to slow down? You're going to let that? No, I'm not going to let that kid score. I'm like, let that kid score a touchdown. He's a little kid. Let him score on Ricky Williams. Oh, no, not on me. He's not going to score. He would yank them back at the 5-yard line, yank them off their feet onto the ground. It was amazing. And people would be out there watching their own kids get hit and say, you need to toughen up. I'm like, phew. So I hope he doesn't hurt your son or your daughter, because the girls would be playing too.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
And he would run them over.
He wouldn't give them. Nobody got a chance with him. He wanted to win. He always wanted to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like that. He likes to win. He doesn't, and I put a little basketball court, and they would come over to my house, and you could lower the rim from 10 feet, which he didn't need to lower, because guys like Priest Holmes could dunk in a regular.
Yeah.
And they would come over, and they would be so competitive. They would put holes in the nets because they would fall and jump through the net. They were knocking slats out of the fence next door. They would bury themselves into the fence. I'm like, guys, I can't afford you guys breaking the fence down here.
That's actually how I got to get pretty close to him at one point in my life. Was he doesn't like to lose. And I was at an event with him where he was playing ping pong. He's actually a pretty good ping pong player.
He is?
He's a very good ping pong player. And I was the only one in the room that actually could compete with him. And I beat him once. It's like, we're playing again. We're playing again. We're playing again. And so I just got to keep playing with him. And through that playing, I got to ask him a lot of questions. But like the thing I recognized was he maybe made the mistake. Now he won't say that, and I wouldn't label it as that, but that's my story. Is he made the mistake of setting the target as the goal, not the destination as goal. So he's like, I want to win the Heisman, and then I'm done. For you, what targets have you set in your life, and what are you still trying to pursue?
Well, for me, I've always picked out 3 things, and I've, goal wise and goal setting. Obviously you have to have a time limit on your goals, or you have to reevaluate and change your goals. Your goals have to change. If you get to a certain time in your life and it hasn't changed, then you better reset your goals again. But I've always set my goals with 3 things. 3 things. I never said 5 different things I want to do. Yeah. 3 was enough. It was hard enough to try to keep 3 things, and I set that for players and myself. But I never wanted to. I never set a goal of being the best. Now, along the way, if I became one of the better assistant coaches in my life, I never set out to be a head coach. That was never one of my goals when I got into coaching. One of my goals was just to help young guys to eventually become really good adults. What are they going to do in their communities when their time is done, whether they're playing football at my university, the NFL, what kind of people they were going to grow up to be. That was one of my goals of coaching. I mean, whether you're a scout leader, no, it doesn't matter. What can you do to help somebody else out? That's a part, to me, that was my main goal, is what am I going to do to help somebody else become a better person? And hopefully much better than I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was one of the things I would set. Like I said, I never set out to be the best at anything, but my timeline on certain things was, because people always ask me, said, well, didn't you ever want to become a coordinator or a head coach? I said, well, I got an opportunity to go when I got a job at 26 years old at Boston College as the 9th coach, and that was pretty early. So I coached there. I went to Illinois, and at Illinois, I was only there for a couple years. So about 5 years in my coaching career, I got a call from George Seifert, who was with the San Francisco 49ers. and wanted to know if I would interview to be his running back coach for the San Francisco 49ers. I'm like, damn, I just got in college. How am I going to? I was so horrified. I was not ready. I went and interviewed with Coach Seifer, and he had told me that he knew a couple guys that when I was at Boston. And when that's how I got the Illinois job. Somebody had talked to John Malkovich about, this guy has been at Boston College for 3 years. He's ready to coach in the Big Ten. And John Malkovich called me up, and I actually cussed at him because I said it's not John Malkovich. I didn't quite say that, but I said there's no, what way that this is John Malkovich. He coached for the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, he had not been with the Chiefs. He had taken the Illinois job. And I said, well, how did you get my name, Coach? He said, somebody recommended, somebody who knew you just recommended you to me. And I took that job. But then 2 years into that, when George Seifer called from the San Francisco 49ers, I was no more ready to be coaching in the NFL. But I went and interviewed. And the interview was okay, and Coach Seifer said, so do you think you can handle this? And at that time, I just told him, I said, I don't know, Coach. And he knew. That guy was a genius. He knew the minute I said, I don't know, Coach, that I wasn't ready to take that job.
Right.
That's all I had to say to him. If I would have said, yes, Coach, I'm ready to do this, I think I would have got the job. But there was just that little hesitancy in me of saying, I don't know, Coach.
Because you didn't want to let him down.
I didn't want to let him down. That guy was brilliant.
Yeah.
He was smart, and we're talking about the San Francisco. That's when they were winning Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to let him down because people that were playing for him were great, great players, and I didn't want to let those guys down. Some young coach coming here screwing up and having to be taught how to coach.
Yeah.
All over again. So, but yeah, goal setting. I haven't set a lot of goals. In my this time of my life. One of my deals is to survive as long as I can, be around for my grandkids, make sure that I'm try to be as good a husband as I can be. Not the best.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I never tried to push to be the best.
Right.
I want to be as good as I can be, and that means a lot. That means a lot. If you can be the best you can be, that means that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of discipline to do that.
Yeah.
And you're going to make some mistakes along the way. And I think the best thing for me, as I said, adversity. I've had adversity all along the way. I grew up in an all-black neighborhood in Greensboro, North Carolina. My father went to an all-black school. My mother went to Tennessee State. My father went to North Carolina A&T. Moved to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where I was the first black graduate in my high school. I was the first in my elementary school, the first in my high school. My brother was the second, my sister was the third. And so I had to get along with people of all types. I was black Catholic, going to school, went to Boston College. Never even in my mind knew that Boston College until I got on the campus was a Jesuit college. So I'm like, wow, I didn't do this on purpose.
Yeah.
But it didn't help. It helped me get into the college, got a scholarship, but SAT wasn't that great.
Right.
So it did help me to get in. So I had kind of a Catholic education, but like I said, never wanted to be the best, never wanted to be the best wide receiver, but I worked at it. I'm not saying I worked enough to survive, but I did survive.
Yeah.
But and still today, I don't do a lot of goal settings when it comes to YouTube and radio. I just thought radio was just a great way to continue to communicate and be a coach. And YouTube is the same way.
Yeah.
To have a show on and been able to be in the communications business now. I guess if I count my coaching, I'm coming up on 40 years of being in the communications business, and radio was just one way to continue to communicate.
Right.
I got outside of the sports realm and got into country music with a guy named Bob Cole, a Hall of Fame radio guy. I was in there talking civics and politics, stuff that I didn't know. I had to learn, and I learned the hard way because he taught me some hard lessons about that. But he also taught me about people. And from this day on, since I got into radio with him for 2.5 years, the people that I met through him, I still know and are still really, really close. And he forced me to do things that I did not like to do. Like when we'd go to meetings or we'd go to events, that guy had to be the last one to leave. That was not me. If I went there to events, how quick can I get out? I would smooch people and then say, okay, I disappear. He's gone? Oh, no, he's been gone.
Yeah.
So he would come and pick me up at my house. He wouldn't let me drive to events. So I didn't have a way home.
Yeah.
And so he said, we're going to be here long. And the event would be over. An hour and a half later, he'd still be talking to people. And I'd be like, man, I want to get out of here. So I learned how to hang out and talk to people, and I learned a lot from him. And that still holds today, thank goodness, because I would still be the first out the door if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
Socially, I'm good, but there comes a time where I'm ready to get out.
Yeah.
But he taught me, you got to be patient. It'll work in the long run for you. These people remember that extra 15 minutes you stayed with them, and he's right about that. People love the fact that you will spend that extra time with them.
Yep.
They just do. Like I said, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And that's really, really important to people.
Right.
And so he taught me a lot about that. You know, I've had good partners in radio. I've got a good young guy right now who's very, very talented, but he's patient with the old guy. He likes to hear the old stories.
Yeah.
And so he can put up with them. And he's a young guy, just turned 30.
Wow.
So he's got a long way to go.
Long way to go. You got a lot to teach him.
Yeah, and he's been getting that since we've known each other for like the last 5 or 6 years. So it's fun. That whole thing is just a journey. You know, being able to be around people like Tony Dorsett, Ricky Williams, Doug Flutie, you know, watching my kids grow up in athletics and being around some really good coaches.
Have you ever been starstruck?
No, I've never. I'm not the one. The only starstruck person and I never got a chance to interview him or see him, was Gale Sayers. I thought Gale Sayers was the greatest football player ever to play the game. And people always talk about Jim Brown as being the greatest running back and the greatest. I always thought Gale Sayers was the best. I never got a chance to interview him, and I always said I would be tongue-tied. I couldn't do it.
That was the idol.
That was my guy, and I never got a chance to do it, and he passed away. Wow. So I never got a chance. I never got starstruck. Ricky has been around all kinds of people, so all kinds of people have been around him.
Yeah.
But I don't even have a Ricky Williams jersey.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't even own a jersey. I only have a signed autograph football of Ricky. That's all I have. And then he signed a football that somebody gave me, that when he had his other name, Rio Don, when he signed four balls. I have one of his Rio Don balls. That's all I have. I don't have any Ricky Williams stuff. I've got none of that stuff. I don't have any Doug Flutie stuff. I don't,
It just doesn't do anything for you.
No, I mean, their names on a jersey. I mean, I got to see them, and I like, for me, I don't go to UT games. I don't go to the games.
You don't go to the games.
I don't go. The last time I was in the stadium was when Ricky broke the record.
Wow.
About almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
I don't go into the stand because it doesn't feel the same for me to sit in the stands than to stand on the sideline.
Well, and they'd even let you stand on the sideline.
Maybe. Who knows? Yeah. But remember, I'm on radio now.
Yeah.
I've had to talk about some of the not so good things that you see.
Well, and Texas football was nasty for a couple of years.
Oh yeah,
we had some bad years.
And you had to say that, you had to tell the truth.
You had to tell the truth.
And so I don't know how that would work out, but no, I don't go to games because I wouldn't have that same feeling. But then again, I was never one to go to games like professional games.
Yeah.
I grew up in Pennsylvania. I never went to Phillies games. Going to school in Boston, I've been to a Red Sox game, a Celtics game, maybe one, a Bruins game. But people that wanted to go to those games, I was like, no. It's not the same feel.
Yeah, if you weren't playing, you didn't want to go.
Or if I wasn't coaching,
I
didn't want to be in the stands because people want to talk to you about coaching. They want to talk to you about, what do you think should happen here? I'm like, that's not my team.
No, that's not.
That's the boss down there.
Yeah.
I can't tell them what to do. But
what did the kids teach you along the way? You got to work with these young men, see them evolve from kids to men, and you taught them a ton, obviously. But what did they teach you?
I think more than anything that when you grow up, the mistakes that you made, the things that you did as a kid, I think you then get into adulthood and you don't look back at that. I look at what they taught me because I see them making some of the mistakes that they make that they don't think are so bad.
Yeah.
That I said really can they can screw up your future.
Yeah.
So they've taught me that, dude, be careful. Still keep your head on a swivel. Don't ever let your guard down. Know your surroundings. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you say to people. And because I watch them do that as I've taught them, hey, don't say that. No, you don't say that. As I told them, these guys with their loose tongues, and especially in locker rooms, that locker room talk, and some of the ways they talked about women, I said, do not do that. I have sisters. Mm-hmm. I have 4 sisters. Now I have daughters. Don't talk about women that way. Don't do that. We're not going to do that in my meetings. We're not going to refer to women as certain things. They're women, they're females, they have names. You call them, don't call them, anything like that. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it in my meeting. I don't want you guys talking that way about women. And I got really the respect from them that they were very good at that. Because that locker room scene can be different. Guys get around guys, they talk a different way.
Yep.
And that's fine. And if you want to talk that way around your guy friends, that's fine. But if you're in a setting with me and I've got sisters, don't talk like that, because I've got not only got sisters, now I have daughters.
Yeah.
That you can't
Now
do that.
granddaughters.
Now granddaughters. I said, you can't, I won't do that. I never put up with that. And so I watched them make certain little things that they didn't think were big mistakes, how they presented themselves, how they talked, how they expressed themselves. I mean, there was one player at the University of Texas named Jared Coleman. He was from Fort Worth. And I remember recruiting him. He wasn't the greatest of running backs. He wasn't a great fullback, but he would have fit the purpose that I needed him for.
Right.
And he got to Texas. And when he got to my meetings in the summertime, people were telling me, this is the laziest son of a gun. I'm like, I'm watching film. He doesn't like lazy kid to me. They would say, well, he wouldn't make it to class. He wouldn't do this. He wouldn't do that. So he came to a couple of my meetings when he first got on campus, and he would doze off. I mean, he would doze off. And I would be in the meeting of trying to explain to him as a young player, this is what we're doing. These are the new plays. And he'd fall asleep. And all of a sudden he'd be like knocked out. And I said to him after the meeting, I let him just sleep. And I said, after the meeting, I said, Jared, have you ever been tested for narcolepsy? And he was like, what? I said, you've never been tested for that, have you? And he goes, no. And they tested him at the University of Texas only to find out he had narcolepsy.
Wow.
And so all the people that thought he was this lazy bum in high school, he had this disease that had just happened to him.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be anywhere. He would just be out. He could be watching you. Next thing you know, he's knocked out. And so these guys I said, guys, this is what he has. This is not something that he's trying to do. He's not like turning me off. He goes, Coach, we used to think he was trying to turn. I said, no.
Yeah.
I said, he got tested. This is what he has. And he's always had this.
Wow.
And I said, so all those times you hear him snoring in the meetings where I tell him to go sit in the back over there, he wasn't doing it on purpose.
Wasn't doing it on purpose.
No. So you learn a lot from them. And I mean, I got to learn a lot. I learned a lot from some young guys, but hopefully they got some stuff from me. And patience was the deal, because they all came from different backgrounds, different families. Not everybody was the same, but as you had players like Ricky Williams and Priest Holmes, you had to treat them the same. Although Priest Holmes always thought that, are you ever going to treat this guy when you're not going to treat him like a baby? I said, he's pretty good. And he goes, yeah, he's good. But are you going to ever treat him like he's not? I said, probably not. He's always going to be a baby. And he always was. He was always the baby, but they all loved him. They knew him. Ricky became Ricky.
Yeah.
And everybody knew how he was.
Yeah.
But, there were those times where when it came to meetings, when we'd leave to go on an away trip, he would be the last on the bus. He knew the bus was leaving at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock. 5 minutes before the bus left, I was sitting there in a cold sweat, sitting in the bus, and the coaches are looking at me. And here he comes around the corner 5 minutes before. I'm like, you don't have to do this to me. He goes, well, what time does the bus leave? It leaves at 3 o'clock. He says, it's 2:55. I'm like, but you don't have to do this. Can't you get ready at 2:30 and be here like the first on the bus? He goes, no, I'm going to be there before the bus leaves. I'm not let you down yet. He goes, no. I said, no, you're not let me down yet. But something could happen in between that walk where you could be talking to somebody and forget.
Right.
And he goes, you think they're going to leave me? I'm like, probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not going to leave you. They'll probably wait another 5 minutes.
Yeah, he probably knew.
Oh, but we had to teach him time. I mean, I had to get up in the mornings at 6 o'clock when he first came to Texas and run him the stadium stairs. He ran those stadium stairs at 6 a.m. I said, well, Ricky, time's over with. Get going. I'll meet you there. I'll be there at 6 a.m. sharp. He was there. He would run up the stadium stairs, and then he'd have to go to class. And I'd say, this is before NIL. I said, so you want to go to breakfast at Trudy's? Let's go to breakfast at Trudy's. I'll treat you. Which probably could have gotten, of course, back in the day, you're not allowed to buy. I said, I'll get you something that, before you go off to class, let me get you something. And before I go off to work, we'll just run up to Trudy's. Hell, you weren't even supposed to put them in your car.
Wow.
That's how strict the rules were at that time. If it wasn't his car, he wasn't supposed to be. I mean, I met a kid at the airport that didn't have a ride back to campus. And he said, I'm going to call a cab. And I said, no, dude, get in the back seat of my car. I said, this is the dumbest rule ever.
Yeah.
I said, I'll let you off at a certain part of the campus. Nobody's going to see you.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get me in trouble for that. I said, that's so dumb. But Ricky was special. And they were like, you just treat him just like he's a baby. I said, he is a baby. He's a big baby. I said, this guy was raised by all females.
Yeah.
There was no guy in his life slapping him upside the head every once in a while, telling him, no, you can't do it this way.
Yeah.
Everybody was always, yes, Ricky.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Ricky, you can do that. They'd laugh at him and let him go. And but he's changed. He's a real grown up. He's a businessman now.
That's awesome.
Business grandfather / dad.
Yeah.
Dad.
It's crazy, man.
That is crazy.
So
stuff.
when does Texas win the national championship?
Oh, probably in 2 more years.
26?
I think so. 26, 27.
26, 27.
I just think, for me, I think it'll be a down year. I do. I just don't think you can keep this momentum.
Yeah.
Back-to-back years, you go to the semifinals. You got a brand new quarterback.
Yeah.
You lose some great linemen.
Great wide receivers.
Great wide. Every year you've hit it in the portal on these great wide receivers.
Yeah.
So if the one that's I think a kid's coming from Stanford who's played for him, is he a first or a second round pick? If he's not, if he's a 4th round pick, you're going to lose out. You lose a pretty good tight end that really played well for you. I just don't think you can keep that kind of momentum up, and especially even on the defensive line side. They lost all those great players 2 years ago. Then the following year, they're even better than they were then.
It was crazy.
I can't imagine them being better this year than they were last year or even the year before. So I think they take a step back. But that's what good coaching can do.
Yeah.
That's what good NIL money can do.
Yeah, good recruiting.
And good recruiting. And you're in a state that's just got such great recruiting.
Yeah.
And as I said, if there's a great running back in the state of Texas, he should always take a visit to the University of Texas.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how good the running backs are at Texas. The best one in this state should always be on your campus. And I don't think you're doing a great job as a recruiter. If that kid doesn't come to your campus and he's a great running back in this state, and you can't even get him to come on your campus,
yeah,
you're not doing a good job.
No.
Not doing. There's too many great ones in this state.
Yeah.
That go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the first place they should come and visit your place. They can tell you no later.
Yeah.
But they should come on, at least get a chance to come on your campus. But this football program is going right in the right direction because there's stability there. There's everybody's one heartbeat. Everybody's doing the same. Nobody's getting treated any different. Now that NIL money is probably a little bit different.
It's a little bit better.
It's a little bit better here. You have the means.
Yeah.
But that's not always, as I said, I don't think that's always the point at Texas. I just think there's so much legacy of uncles or grandfathers or somebody that's gone to the University of Texas. If a kid has an opportunity to go here and has had an uncle that went here or a grandfather that went here, you're going to have a better chance. You should have more than a better chance to get that kid to come, and it shouldn't be about the money.
Right.
It shouldn't be about the money.
Shouldn't be about the money.
No, it never should be about the money.
Well, you got to go rent Ricky a car. I better let you go.
I got to go rent him a car.
Got to go rent Ricky a car.
Because I'm still doing stuff for Ricky.
Treat him like a baby.
Still treating him like a baby. And the priest home saw me, he goes, you're 70 years old. You're still treating that guy who's almost 50 now like he's a kid. Yes. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, man.
To come
really
and see
appreciate
you.
it. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
I appreciate being on with you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.